thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life.
So who's going to cast us into prison and have give the saints tribulation 10 days at this point? Or who's writing to? The devil. The devil's going to bring this persecution. So we can find that he's going to try to hinder the saints. He's already trying to hinder the saints. So the devil's out to oppress everybody. He tried to oppress Paul, and he's going to try to oppress the saints as well. He's going to do everything he can to stop us, or at least slow us down. In the day and age we're living in, we can already see that come to pass. It might not seem like a burdensome crushing, but at the same time, with what force is the church going forward? I mean, if you think about it, how many people are content just to come to church and sit down? And then they get their fill of God for the week and they go home. When it comes to the church that used to be very extremely active, we find them getting more and more like the world. They're losing the power. The devil is slowly oppressing or stripping away the church what was rightfully theirs. The power of God. And it might not seem much, but get these powerless Christians in the presence of somebody who's demonic and demon-possessed. Let's see them cast the demon out. They're not going to be able to do it because the devil's oppressed them and stripped them of their power. We can look at other countries of the world. Let's look at China. They have to meet in secret, the true church, in order to hold church. Otherwise, they're persecuted. If any Christian sets foot within the borders of Saudi Arabia, they are on grounds that they are able to be executed because no Christian is permitted in the nation of Saudi Arabia. And I fear for America because of the way that the church has gone. Because God will always purge the true church. At some point, and almost always, if you look at history, the true church will be purged. Though, where are the true Christians? And God will bring them out. And that will involve imprisonment. That will involve death. It could involve tribulation. And going back to Paul, he was familiar with all these things. If someone would please read 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 28. And as they're reading it, I'd like the rest of us just think about the church and the day and age we're living in. And think about all these things that we've had to endure as well. See if we've had to do any, see if we had to partake of any similar tribulation. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 28. Whoever has it, just go ahead and read 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 28.
The ministers of Christ, I speak as a fool. I am more labors, more abundant in stripes above measure, prisons more frequent, and deaths oft. Of the Jews 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. Thrice was I beaten with rods, once with I stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck, and night and day I have been in the deep. Journeyings often, in perils of water, in perils of robbers, in perils by mine own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren, in weariness and painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness. Besides those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches.
These here, Paul lists those troubles that came his way. And if we think about it with the church, or even just us in mind, When was the last time that we didn't have enough clothes on that we were actually cold? I'm talking like coats and all that other stuff. We have enough clothing to keep us warm. We're in air conditioning right now. How about when was the last time were you hungry? When was the last time you suffered from thirst? When was the last time you were in fear that you were going to be killed by those around you? Paul said that he was received in prisons often, or more frequent, however you want to do the wording. He was in peril of death often. Of the Jews, 5 times he received 39 stripes on his back. The Jews would not do more than 39 stripes because they feared that 40 was the number that would kill a man. So basically what he's saying is, 5 times the Jews brought me to the near death of my life. He was beaten by rods, which shows us that he was beaten by Roman government officials. We can see that in Acts chapter 16. He was shipwrecked not once, not twice, but 3 times. Can you imagine floating in the ocean for a whole night and a day? And of course he says in perils of water and perils in the city and all that other stuff as well. But this is what Paul suffered. This is what he wrote. The devil will try to hinder us as long as we're trying to do his work. And he will oppress the church and he will oppress the Christians in one way or the other. Sometimes we'll feel the weight and the heaviness. Other times we won't. But the truth of the matter is, everyone is open for oppression. It's not just the unbeliever, and it's not just the Christian, but it's little children as well. I spoke of last week how I watched that documentary on casting out demons, and they had the boy on there who's grown up now from the Amityville horror, and he said that the movie was actually portrayed inaccurately. He said what really happened was his stepfather was involved in, escapes my mind, was it transcendentalism? Basically, he would sit down for hours and chant out the name of a demon. He said it wasn't the true portrayal in the movie, but rather it was his stepfather calling the name of this demon that got the house haunted, if you want to put it in those terms, or possessed, one of those ways. And he claimed that that same demon was still tracking him down and chasing him to his day. That demon that his stepfather chanted and called in the house was the same demon that was chasing that boy and following him throughout his adult life. Anyone can be oppressed. But what can bring oppression? Let's open up the floor here. What can bring oppression? What do you guys think can bring oppression upon an individual or a household? Focusing more specifically, let's focus on an individual. Musics, videos. People can do it. And going on, let me just expand a little bit farther. They're not that open over here. But if you go to other nations like Haiti, there are witch doctors that will summon demons that they can pay witch doctors to bring these demons to go chase and hunt down an individual. And if they are not saved, to kill them. Anything else?
Anything that off the gates of our soul, our eyes, our ears, our mouth. It happens. We have to remember the devil is the prince and the power of this world. And he's out there in the magazine where you walk by the grocery store. Certainly, as been said, music, television, and it comes in so, we allow it to come in so easily. And then we let our guard down, and it becomes bigger and bigger. And it becomes a tool that the enemy can use.
Oh yeah. We especially have to keep an eye on those things which society deems acceptable and I'm going out on the far limb at this point, but Ouija boards, that is one of the easiest ways to bring demons about, because you're opening up your whole household and everyone in the area to a demon. They originated with seances, what they used them for. And now, Toys R Us will market them with the kids. In fact, when I was teaching on spiritual warfare with the teenagers last year, I've discovered that back then, if they still make it, they were making a pink Ouija board. I wonder which target audience they were aiming for. Girls love anything pink. They have Ouija boards that you can play online. The internet itself can be a dangerous tool if it's not used properly in bringing that stuff about. As the pastor's already said, the 5 gates to your soul: touch, taste, sight, smell, and hearing. All those things is what can bring and allow the devil to come into them. And of course, that includes everything in society, because those are all our gates. Those thoughts that should not be there that we allow the devil to bring into our mind, that we can constantly dwell on, that can bring oppression. And we also brought up last week things that may not seem religious at all, such as yoga. Free your mind. Whatever comes into your mind, just allow it to stay there. Dwell upon it. Think upon it. There's a new thing out right now called Zumba. Personally, I don't know what to think about that. Because the guy, what he did, seriously, well, that's what they call it, Zumba. This guy from Africa, what he did was I forget the techniques for his exercises, but he's playing it to music he had in Africa. Some of that music from Africa and different nations, and I'm not targeting anybody, I'm not racist, but a lot of their music comes from their worship. And what do they worship in other countries like that? It's normally their gods. And as we'll find out in weeks to come, when we study idolatry, that idols are nothing but little gods, and which represent nothing but little demons. And it gets farther, so you're bringing music into your home that you're exercising to, possibly, that is used to worship demons. No, we have to be careful. Society doesn't tell us these things, and they creep in unaware. And the devil doesn't do things blatantly and openly, otherwise a Christian would reject it the moment, okay, no, you're not going to do that. I know it. It's so obviously, you're stupid. No, the devil's been around a lot longer than we have. And when I say we have, I mean us as an individual. He knows the tricks. He knows the Word of God. He knows how to twist it. I want to talk about that in weeks to come too. There's a lot to talk about. But regardless, there's a lot of things that we can that can be used to open us up to oppression. And I'm just going to name off a list that I found on the internet. Indulgence in occultic music. Music was already mentioned. How about literature? You know, we need to be careful with what we read. There's a lot of Harry Potter books. There's a lot of books out there on sorcerers, witchcraft. Even when it comes to the quote-unquote Christian realm, I'm not so much a fan of C.S. Lewis because he uses witchcraft. And when you get down to his beliefs, they're far out there. He believed in worshiping the dead. And when you get down to his connections, he's connected as being close friends, if I remember, with R.L. Tolkien? The guy who did The Lord of the Rings, which was completely not Christian, even though they try and claim it was. I mean, we need to be careful. We talked about music. When it comes down to the Harry Potter movies, they said when it came to casting the spells, they got as close to the actual spell as possible when it came to involving it in the script. Dancing. Of course, this website was big on occultic. Anything occultic, if you open yourself up to Ouija boards or anything like that, that's just calling for a demon to come and oppress you. Grudges against God